Call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Hampden Board of Selectmen, the Board of Health. Townhouse Auditorium, Tuesday, November 9th, 2021. This meeting is being conducted in person and remotely using video conferencing technology as allowed by Governor Baker's order in March 2020. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a short note on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, I'd like to thank all those veterans who have served and are serving and their families for their sacrifices over the years. Thank you for allowing us to be here this evening and have the democracy that we have. And everyone enjoy Veterans Day, please, and support our vets. John, you know, are you where you guys coming, or is Greg coming?
Oh.
I mean, is Andrew's here, and is Gary? Will wait for
Gary is coming,
And
but I think
here,
6:15.
and Wendell.
Wendell says.
Wendell's coming.
Okay, all right. All right, so, you know, as soon as they all come, we'll just take it out of order. Minutes, executive session of September 27th, 2021.
Move to accept.
How about page 2,
Paragraph 4.
paragraph 4.
Is this an editorial comment or that we should delete?
I thought I took that out.
Yeah, no, take that up.
There's one.
I would just,
Just,
if the chief made the comment, I would just end it after Grumpy.
okay, just, oh,
End it after Grumpy. He made a statement and
So
it's in
amend
the
it,
record.
end it, Grumpy, and end it, and then just. Ask you amendment.
I'll second it with the amendment.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes, regular minutes meeting of October 4th, 2021.
No issues with these. I'll move to accept the minutes for October 4th.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? All right.
Aye.
The minutes of the October regular meeting, October 13th, 2021. This was the town meeting night, right?
The week before.
Or yeah, yeah.
Okay, a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Are we pretty close to, basically, we're running about 1 or 2 meetings behind, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Updating committee and board appointments.
yes, you should have a sheet in your folder that shows those members of various committees or boards whose terms have expired. So I've contacted people to see if they are willing to continue in their roles, and Stormwater is a particular note because it's a three-year term. And I don't think the response I got is 3 years. So maybe if we could change the length of time, the term for the stormwater.
I mean, they think 3 is a long time, or?
Yes, I
More
think so.
fair, they can all step down.
Yeah.
I mean, Andrew, are you willing to stay on stormwater?
Till July, yes.
Last July, sorry.
I mean, this July, yeah, we're working on something else, so I'll be on it till July.
Of 22.
Yeah, this one coming up. Yeah.
Okay, 'cause it shows you expired in July 21.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go to July.
So you're willing to be
Yeah,
reappointed
till
for
July
July
22.
At least a year.
Yeah.
How do you think about the rest of your committee? Are they expressing interest that?
Gary said 1 more year.
So he'll probably go to July 2022 as well.
What about John?
John?
What's the terms? I think that's what our,
It's
3 years.
3 years.
that's-
it's a 3-year term.
I mean, you can always
cut your
resign,
sentence?
take the term and just, step down when you feel like stepping down.
And that's not how I work it, okay? That's not how I am. So if I commit to something, so right now, I'm not committed. Right now, I'm not committing to anything because
Right now, the whole committee is expired. Can we just re-up everybody till July of next year, at least?
That's what I
Get them through the year.
so you want to do a 1-year term.
Right, just to get everybody to July of 2022, we're already halfway through. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, all right, I'll do that. Yeah.
I mean, you're already, because you're already almost halfway through that appointment period anyway. Yeah, really.
Rather than having everybody expire at once.
Yeah. There's nothing else.
There's no extra
Yes,
money. There's no
okay.
extra money. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know.
We can also ask the rest of the board too, later if they want to be longer.
Oh, they don't have.
I
to.
will ask him.
So that way, when, instead of doing July 22,
Right.
across the board, some of the members may be like, yeah,
Yeah.
I've got 3 years.
On the capital planning, I think we already knew that Donna had stepped down. I'm not sure about Pam.
Well, I don't know if there was anything official, but I mean, I'm not part of it, so I
Yeah.
don't really know.
So that's a vacancy.
Yeah.
And Lisa's a
Both Donna
vacancy.
and Pam Rogers, correct?
Pam just had trouble getting to the meetings.
Yes,
That
Lisa,
was,
Lisa also. Donna. And Pam.
well, I'm not sure, Bob, that Pam stepped down. She had trouble getting to the meetings at times. She did ask about if we went to a different schedule, because she was coming from
Amherst or someplace, right?
something like that. And she had trouble, at 6 o'clock, and we were doing 5 at that point, which was hard.
You
But
have a
definitely
written
Donna-
resignation.
Donna at the time did step down because she was interested in the fire station committee at that time.
Yeah, we have a written resignation from Lisa. We don't have a written resignation from Donna, but she's
No.
clearly has stepped down.
Right.
Okay, so you have 2 vacancies there. Cliff on Council of Aging,
Yeah, Susanna Haskins would like to be reappointed.
okay.
Well, we were both at the meeting this morning, so.
And Cliff did say that he would
Yeah,
remain
yeah,
on, so I'll get appointments.
Well, we can, I mean, Becky's online right now. We can just ask her. She's on a Zoom call, just to confirm.
Hello.
Okay, aside that.
So there were 2 listed as 21s, Cliff and Suzanne, and they're both interested in staying on.
Yes.
There we go.
Okay.
Right from the boss.
Right. And then,
How do you want to do this, Chief? You wanna
Yeah, make a motion.
Per board, basically.
make a motion before.
Make a motion to reappoint Cliff Bombard and Suzanne Haskins to 3-year terms on the Council on Aging Board, expiring in June 30th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Make a motion to reappoint the Stormwater Committee as currently impaneled to terms ending June 30th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Conservation Commission. Andrew,
What's that?
You expired.
you're expired on the Conservation Commission too.
You want to stay on, right?
What's that? How long is that one?
3.
3? Yeah, I guess, yeah.
You and probably John Cushman as well. I know he's really engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Make a motion to appoint Andrew Netherwood and John Cushman to the Conservation Commission. 3-year terms expiring June 30th, 2024.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, what about Judy?
She had,
Well-
I thought we already did this.
She was kind of up in the air, I thought, as to
But,
how long she wanted to serve.
you know,
She's on right now.
right.
I mean, I can email.
Judy Shaw? Judy,
Juver.
Is she?
Judy, are you there?
Good.
Oh, yeah.
There you are. Hi, Judy.
Unmute her.
Yes, I will stay.
Okay,
10-year term, Judy, is that okay?
lifetime appointment?
Yeah, unless I die.
Like the Supreme Court. There we go. See, Andrew, we gave you the easy one.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, go ahead, make a motion.
Make a motion to reappoint Judy McKinley Brewer to the Conservation Commission to a term, we gotta balance these out here, I hate to say, expiring June 30th, 2023.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. What else we got? Anything else in here? No?
No, but our intent is, once we are as up to date as we can be, is to get this printed as a booklet and to make it available to the public.
Yeah.
I wouldn't exactly do it. Encyclopedia Britannica run here, since you never know if you have somebody resigning.
That's-
on a monthly
Well,
basis.
it's going to be out of date probably 2 days after it gets printed.
Okay. Appointment of election officers.
There she is.
We've had recent turnover with two of our elected officials moving out of state, makes it a little difficult to reappoint them. And we have kind of brought up through the ranks, their understudies in some cases, to replace them. So we actually had to have a new election warden. Ben Bump chose to stay as the deputy warden where he had been. And when Ellen LaValle left, then instead of going into the clerk's position, Kathy Rochford agreed to take the warden's position, so that left that vacancy, and Tina Duran has accepted that vacancy. And John Plaster has just recently agreed to take the position of deputy clerk, which will work out nicely. They've all worked well together, and John's familiar with the workings of the elections. He's worked on a number of occasions, so I think we're in pretty good shape with them, but I would like to have them all officially appointed. I've made them well aware of this, like you're stuck down, so
What, kind of 3-year term of it?
that's good.
Okay.
So
Nobody strongs arm people like Eva does, I have to tell you.
I say
Three-year
Kathy
term?
Rochford, I gave you a list, I believe I emailed it to you, so Kathy Rochford would be our warden, Ben Buff, our deputy, right, our just put here, just that.
I make a
What that
motion to
says.
appoint Kathleen Rochford as election warden, Ben Bump as deputy warden, Tina Duran as clerk, and John Plaster as deputy clerk to a term expiring June 30th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Now you want to take the committee, Becky's on.
Yeah,
It's a pretty
Becky's on,
short thing.
yeah. Becky, we're gonna jump to you on the senior tax work-off program.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
What's the deal?
So annually, the Board of Selectmen will approve or not approve another year of the tax work-off program that would begin in January and go through the end of November 2022. Last year, you approved up to 10 positions for the program. While we did not fill all of those positions, it gives us a little bit of flexibility to add positions as we move forward. So I would request that the program be approved because it's been quite successful and keeping with the up to 10 positions. I did speak with Kelly in the assessor's office, and she didn't seem to think that there would be a problem with the up to 10 positions again for 2022.
On your list here, you have the senior center, fire department, and library. Is there one in the clerk's office too?
So there had been one in the clerk's office, but there was not one filled there this past year. That position actually turned into, I believe, a hired individual, Mo Gray.
Like, since we have assessors coming next week, I want to just confirm with them next week, but we just. Basically, I would endorse 10 positions based on the recommendation of the senior center director, the board of assessors, and the town treasurer.
That your motion?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, 10 positions.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Thank you very much.
Stay on if you'd like. It's gonna be really exciting.
Thank you. I'm going to keep driving now.
You're driving in your.
No, I'm in a parking lot right now, but I'm going to move on. Thank you for taking me out of order.
That's your story. All right. Want to do the conservation land thing, seeing Judy's on? Okay. Judy and
Ted
Ted.
is now a Zoom user. Wow.
Conservation land project. We have our motion. You want to give a quick comment, Judy?
No, we had some long discussions with Rose and with, she had some discussions with Natural Heritage. And I think the commission is comfortable with the arrangements.
Official motion from the official attorney.
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
move that pursuant to the authorization given by town meeting on October 18, 2021, that the board of selectmen transfer the approximately 1.5 acre parcel identified at the Town of Hampden Assessor's Map as parcel 36-33, the approximately 7.59 acre parcel identified in the Town of Hampden Assessor's Map as parcel 19-63, and the approximately 9.69 acre portion of a parcel identified in the Town of Hampden's Assessor's Map as parcel 19-85, all as more fully shown on the attached exhibit and totaling approximately 18.78 acres in the aggregate, all currently town-owned land, to the care, custody, maintenance, and control of the Conservation Commission in accordance with MGL Chapter 40, Section 15A, for rare species mitigation pursuant to the Massachusetts Endangered Species Act, General Law, Chapter 131A, and its implementing regulations 321 CMR 10.00.
Is that 1.00?
Let me go over it again.
Can you read that one more time?
I
Can I
would.
make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead. Make a comment.
Amoresco will have a conservation management plan, and they will be responsible for the ongoing maintenance. I noticed you have the word maintenance in there. For fencing, for signage, for all that sort of stuff. That comes under the CMP.
And there's a state agency that's also helping to manage this as well, right?
That's right. Natural Heritage will write that plan with them.
This also goes in line with our amendment to the lease agreement, which we talked about in an earlier meeting, that we're going to use part of the lease proceeds to donate to the conservation fund, which will allow them to mitigate any expenses they have and build up the fund for potential projects in the future.
Yes?
Yes.
Not part of this motion, but that's
Yeah.
something we'd like to do to help this committee.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience. in
Yeah,
this
it took
here.
a long, it was a long, painful step. Okay, the stormwater bylaw thing, so, yeah. You wanna come up, you wanna? You're happy there? Okay, all right. So I just wanna go through it so you know, that we're on the same page, and we're on the same page or what we're supposed to do. All right. Yeah, it's a tough crew. All right, so under authority, so I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, but just one of the things that deal with the selectmen. Right? So under authority, it says the board of selectmen, its employees or agents are designated to enforce this bylaw. The board of selectmen shall delegate town agencies to administer, implement, and enforce this bylaw. These agencies shall be referred to as the designated agent by powers delegated in writing by the board of selectmen. So we need to delegate to building inspector, your powers, and this is X, or to the planning board, or to the conservation commission, or.
We had done that already two windows one time.
We did that, right, yeah, we didn't do it right.
In writing?
Yeah, it says in writing, you know? And you've been doing it.
Oh, absolutely. He is the designated agent.
Right.
I mean, yes, you should vote on it, but he, under the bylaw, he is the designated agent.
Well, I think we did vote it, maybe, and by our minutes, therefore, it's in writing, and it's been performed. And we'd like to just close the loop here, as I see Don is stating it, right?
But it says, we could name other agencies, right?
Correct.
I mean, we could say Wendell's doing the minor ones and the planning board is doing the major ones.
No, that's not how it goes. No.
Why not?
Because Wendell's the designated agent. Okay. And I'm saying that because we would provide Wendell the information. He controls the permit. He's the permitting, he's the one that
So
controls.
you would be a resource to him, but not a.
Yeah, and the reason that Wendell volunteered is that it's not just the paperwork, but there's follow-on potential inspections. So if you were to designate half of it to the planning board or a quarter of it to conservation, then you're divesting the follow-up inspections. We didn't really want to, we didn't see that as practical.
Keep it in one spot.
Right. Okay, so the next thing it just says the Board of Selectmen, its employees or designated agents to enforce the bylaw. So that would be,
So would you like a formal motion to appoint the building commissioner as the agent?
yes.
Make a motion to appoint the building commissioner as the agent of the Board of Selectmen for stormwater enforcement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's number, okay, no, then the third thing, under designated agent, it does say the building inspector or assigned replacement in cooperation with the Board of Selectmen, the Planning Board, Conservation Commission, and Highway Department shall be enforcing agent of this bylaw. So we have the building commissioner is the designated agent or replacement. I mean, I suppose if we got to replace it before, that's what that's about.
Well, like in the future, if the highway department ever decided to hire an engineer or something, an actual licensed engineer that knew about stormwater, could see, review
If we could-
everything, then you could take it off of him, and the highway department and that engineer could collect the permits and take it up, take that task up.
Other communities have their own engineers.
Yeah, they have the highway department, they have their own engineers.
And then the other piece for us would be, like, if something comes across where it is conservation, pick a solar site, and the conservation is included in it, he doesn't do the study, that kind of stuff. Conservation committee would then require a stormwater study as well as its conservation study. That, he would collect the permit for it and everything. We would put it in our requirements of conservation that we need a stormwater study, and then that same study would get passed off to the planning board to review. So we'll have enough people to review it, and then if there's a follow-up, this has to be done afterwards. It's outside of conservation or planning. He would be, the building inspector would be the one that would follow.
I do all the follow-up inspections, all the reporting. Emily from Time and Bond has given me all the checklists and sheets for record keeping. I've already given her 2 years worth of them. I think.
What would you do in a sense of a violation then? Would you,
Excuse me?
in a sense of a violation to a stormwater issue, would you issue,
If there's a violation
penalty?
in regards to, yeah, there's enforcement action to take.
and that would be, you would take care of that, or?
Absolutely. That's why periodically,
Yeah.
even after a heavy rainstorm, I'll walk around solar sites.
Yeah.
Make sure the runoff's not going around. Even this year in July, I was chasing residences with new build sites.
Yeah.
Trying to keep the stormwater under control as well. Usually it's not a heavy enforcement action. It's more like, please control it or we will enforce,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah.
You don't want to go after somebody, you know,
Give them a
with
heads
Billy
up
Club
first.
when you can just reason with them, and most of the time, all it is they don't know.
And so you get the full picture. Minor projects, Wendell certainly is, you know, seeing what's going on and capable of dealing with it. Under the major projects, what happens is that the stormwater management report that is required to be submitted under the major project, whether planning board and or the Conservation Commission require it through a peer review. There is a stormwater management report, and in that management report is an O&M plan, which deals with long-term operation and maintenance. For the construction of major projects, anything over an acre, besides our stormwater permitting, is what's called a NIPD's permit, handled by the EPA. And I point that out because what it does is it removes, certainly you're still involved, but it removes the building inspector from being the primary source of inspection under that filing of what's called a SWIP, Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan. The owner of the property designates an engineer or someone qualified in environmental sedimentation and all that. And after every half inch of rain during construction, while the construction's ongoing, every month, every 30 days, a report is supposed to be generated. That would come here to the building inspector. But because it's a major project, it alleviates, if you will, the town. Certainly you can keep an eye on it, but there's an engineer or somebody who's supposed to be overseeing that project, paid for by the owner, reporting to, like I say, goes through the EPA and also would come here. That's a level that maybe sometimes gets bypassed by some of these major projects. You know, if we got a solar project that's got more than an acre of disruption of land, there's supposed to be an on-site engineer, environmental person who is overseeing that project from the day it starts or even before to make sure all the erosion control barriers are in place till he feels that she feels that the site is stable and can be signed off on. And again, that's reporting that comes here, comes and goes to the EPA.
That's just during the construction stage?
That's during the construction. Post-construction, when everything is supposed to be stable, under the operation and maintenance plan, there are requirements that the stormwater permit points out. I've got a detention basin. It needs to be mowed. It needs to be inspected. I have catch basins. They need to be cleaned twice a year. That's all part and parcel of the maintenance plan. And those reports are something that the committee now is talking about, because we haven't reached out. We tried to reach out to the business community with an educational meeting. We really didn't have much response, but what's going to happen is they are going to get notice that if they have infrastructure or if they have pavement that discharges onto roadways, they fall under this MS4 program, and they're going to have to report to the town. The question that the committee is sort of wrestling with and will wrestle with is, where do those reports go? Certainly we have tie and bond under contract through the Stormwater Committee, where the reports could go up to them and also to the town. But tie and bond may be the logical people to receive those reports and also follow up if the reports don't come in. Because every year, as you know, you get the annual report that has to be signed off on. It goes to EPA, DEP, and probably the guardian angels up there and everybody else. So that data is going to start to need to be inputted into that annual report.
Okay, the other thing you have is under applicability. So it says, prior to the issuance of any site plan approval or development permit from any proposed development listed below, stormwater management permit or waiver of the requirement for stormwater management must be approved by the designated agent. So when do they do this permit?
So when they'll go to planning or they'll go to conservation, they're submitting all that. They're fine tuning all their stormwater aspects.
Right.
Before they're approved, that stuff has to be approved by tie and bond or their consultant. Once it's approved, then they can move forward with their project. And then when it comes to me, it's already approved. I'm just doing the record keeping, issuing the permit, collecting the fees, doing the follow-up after that.
So,
It probably would make sense if you're a consultant engineer to at least file for the permit along with any other permits in town that you're going to get. So if some engineer goes to the planning board or the conservation commission, all that those people need to say is, you need to have you checked with the stormwater permitting program and send them down. The permit can't be approved or shouldn't be approved, can't say can't, shouldn't be approved on a major project before peer review is completed by the planning board's engineer, scientist, or the conservationists, because that way the expertise, the experts are reviewing it. Then the building inspector only has to say, okay, these people are satisfied because they have peer review, now I'll sign on. If the engineer has already filed for the permit, at least you know, I mean, not that you wouldn't know, but at least there's paperwork in place. But the actual signing off on the permit should, in our opinion, right?
Let me just make one correction.
Sure.
The permit would be issued, okay, but when the project is done, okay, that's when Glendale would sign off.
Right.
Yes,
Okay,
issued but not signed off.
issued but not signed off
Yes.
until the project is
Okay,
done.
But the project will never be, won't even be permitted until it's all been approved. all the
So,
stormwater stuff.
okay, well, it says prior to the issuance of any site plan approval. So is it the permit done, is the stormwater permit done before the planning board approves it or doesn't approve it, or?
I think that each board and commission and the stormwater permit are separate entities. And the wording there may be a little bit premature, meaning planning board doesn't have to wait for the permit, the stormwater permit. It should by law. They run under their own set of regulations. So they can't say, well, I'm waiting for this permit. They can't say, I'm waiting for the Conservation Commission to issue an order of conditions. Certainly in cooperation, you want that timing all to come together correctly. But statutorily, each board and commission can only run at their own pace and do what they say. So if the planning board says, we approve this particular project, and let's say that the stormwater application has been requested or assigned, and Wendell has a problem with it, it could bring it to a halt. Generally, that I would say that wouldn't happen because the peer review that has gone on are the experts. And unless there was something there that you saw that they missed, then it would be in his bailiwick to say no and bring the people in to address. But you could have conceivably a Conservation Commission approval and have a stormwater permit not issued because of some other reason.
Okay, here's why I'm confused. Because on the application for the stormwater permit, it says the application of the town of Hampden for a stormwater management permit must be submitted prior to or concurrently with any land use permit application. So if a project, a major project hasn't taken out a stormwater permit or applied for a stormwater permit, and we're going down the road and it's approved, and are they denied because they didn't apply when they didn't apply concurrently or at the same, or submitted prior or concurrently meaning at the same time?
I can't, that one,
I mean, that's
we have to go back through the language, but the only thing I would say is, having filed numerous projects, normally the consultant or the project proponent files all of their applications that they need at the same time. If they need a notice of intent and a site plan review and the stormwater permit, it's usually contingent on the consulting engineer to do all that at the same time.
So here's where I'm going with this.
Sure.
All right, we have 3 projects right now. Amoresco, and I believe the 2 storage unit projects that haven't filed for a stormwater permit. Have they?
No.
All right, so they haven't filed for a stormwater permit. Now, we have a new bylaw. All right, the question is gonna be, do they come under the new bylaw or the old bylaw? If they come under the old bylaw says the major project has to be approved by the select board.
Right, but the new bylaw has been approved.
The new bylaw has been approved, but does their application for the a special permit that they're trying to get, is that set the date when they should have, or can it just be said, or would it just be said, look at, we're not accepting your permit because you're late, you're supposed to do it now, and therefore you gotta withdraw and start all over.
I think you would run into a there's a conceivable problem in that if you denied a project because the stormwater permit had not been issued, not necessarily approved, but not issued, then the applicant may come back and say, well, we were waiting for the peer reviews through the Planning Board Conservation Commission and to give to the permit and all the data it needed to be able to be signed off on. Again, maybe the language needs to be tweaked in there.
Well, but because it says that.
Well, I get that, Tom, I understand, but go ahead.
So I'm gonna just say one thing, that there's a major flaw in the way we handle these, okay? Everything should start pretty much with Linda. Okay, like you had received a request for a solar farm and you guys heard it. That's not right. All of a sudden, you're stepping in. So what should happen is everybody should, I know, Don, you may laugh, but everything should go to Wendell.
Well, I just want to say, we didn't step in. They asked if they could talk to the board of selectmen. We said, fine. And we said, go talk to the planning board.
And that's not right. And I know you said the planning board, but that's not even right. So they came to us and I said they go to Wendell.
Good.
So that's the right thing to do. And that's why I'm trying to educate and say that. Don't step in, send it to Wendell.
We did.
Okay.
We gave a courtesy to listen, but we made no.
Again, let's not go, okay, so the thing is that at that point in time, Wendell would look at this and say, you need to get a stormwater permit, you need to get conservation approval, you need to get planning board approval. Now, because of time constrictions, we may be running in parallel with conservation. We may be running our own project, okay, because of the way that the Mass General laws are written. So those things have to be done. We're still, I'm saying you've got 3 projects. I'm not sure what whoever it was with the landfill, Amoresco, I think it was. They gave us all the information for stormwater. They had done their due diligence. Now, we don't issue the stormwater permit, okay? So that, when Wendell, I don't know if they came to you for a building permit or anything yet.
Or from Amoresco?
Whatever it was for the landfill, yeah.
No, it's kind of like a living thing going where they.
Well,
have
it's exactly what
three
Gary
different
said.
boards.
They're waiting for the Concom stuff to finish because you get all your ducks in a row and then.
And also, how do you make a stormwater plan when you're meeting with your boards and your boards are giving you input going? move
Exactly.
This year, move
Yeah,
that
but if you
there.
go through,
So it's,
the rest of this, you'll see that it says, it goes to the building inspector, and the building inspector sends it to the other boards. And then the building inspector has 90 days to make a determination.
But
The
that's
other
based
people-
on the timing of the other boards making their
So that
determinations
90
as well.
days-
I'm not an engineer.
So that 90 days would become after we've finished our reviews, our peer reviews and everything else. Then we would turn it over to Wendell and Wendell has 90 days. So that's what.
But I'm not, I guess my question, I'm not sure it says prior to the issuance of any site and the application says the procedure is that you do the stormwater permit at the same time as you do your request for special permit or whatever else they got to do concurrently. And if they haven't done that, I'm just looking and saying to myself, we're gonna be faced with another procedural problem that is gonna end up in litigation.
I don't know that they shouldn't have filed a permit at the same time they started their process with the planning. Normal practice would have been that you submit for all of your permit requests and at the same time that you start a project. The purpose of the stormwater permit is to make sure that the town is protected from pollutants and whatever in terms of stormwater. And it follows, it just seems to follow it. And again, maybe the wording here needs to be looked at in terms of timing, but it appeared to me the stormwater permit sign off comes at the end of the process, because Wendell is not going to have the information from the planning or the conservation commission complete and finished until the end of their processes. And so he really wouldn't be in a position to sign off if planning hasn't done their peer review. Or let's say that planning drops the ball and it goes to to Wendell for sign off, and he says, I have nothing here in stormwater. I don't know why the planning board didn't sign off on it, but under my regulations, I need from you this, this, and this, because it's pretty clear in here what's needed. But when discussing it, correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, when we talked about this, I think we saw that the final issuance of a stormwater, or the issuance of a sign off on a stormwater permit was at the end of a process where if planning and conservation were involved, that's when, at the end of it, you would get involved.
So I think like we were sort of looking at it like a building permit. So he's got legwork and everything to do right off the bat as soon as someone comes. Just like any business, you got an engineering fee. So when you come up, stormwater is federal funded. He's got something he has to do. So you show up, your first piece is you pay your fee for the permit. Now there's different, I thought there's supposed to be different sections of, okay, I got conservation stuff signed off, they're good. I've got planning board signed off. I've got all this stuff signed off. That's the whole process all the way through. I'm built just like building inspector. Okay, the framing's done, electrical's done, all that's done. You don't issue the final piece until all those sections are completed, but he has to keep track of it. So that initial fee is to cover all that legwork and everything that has to be done with that.
Yeah, I'm not worried about.
And then after that, after he gets all those signed off, we didn't want somebody that could sit on it like other towns have, that they didn't like a project, that could sit on it. So he, and I'm not picking on him, but that particular position, someone had something against someone else doing something, and he had everything there. He had 90 days to do it. Other than that, it would go through, everything was signed off along on that permit. So nobody could hold the project up that everybody else did their correct stuff. And that was the purpose that I thought, Gary, that we had discussed in our meetings.
But the bylaw says, the designated agent shall refer all major stormwater management permit applications to the appropriate board, commissioner, department for review, and shall consider any comments submitted by the board commission within, and they have to, yeah, and so Wendell's supposed to get it first. He's supposed to get 3 copies of the storm, what their application is and all that kind of stuff, and then send it to the boards, and they have 21 days to respond. So that would be the planning board of conservation.
Yeah, 21 days to say, yes, we're doing something with it, and then they have to follow their rules
Right?
and then submit it back to him, and then he has his
He has 90
deadline once
days.
he gets
He
everything
has
back.
90 days.
90 days from when he gets everything back to
30 days to submit the permit application. unless I need more information.
Right, yeah, and then
So 90 days isn't a real number for the building.
Okay, so I want to go back, I want to go back to what do we do with the three entities that haven't filed for a permit? And which one
So
are
with
they?
regards to the Glendale Road project that you guys were just talking with the solar guy last week or the week before,
Yeah,
now they contacted me. But they were really positive. They were like, the building, the selectmen said this is great. And planning told us to call you. And so I kicked an email back to them that said, well, that's great. I'm happy for you. But you have to go to conservation because there's streams, wetland. Oddly, no heritage species on that side of the road.
Yeah.
But, and then also you have to go to planning board because you have a
things.
large scale ground mount
Yeah.
operation and you're gonna need, stormwater because you have impervious,
Yeah.
tons of impervious stuff. So that's, they came to me, but they just get bounced back where they know they have to go. They already made an appointment with conservation. They had already made an appointment with planning. It's just, process. Like when they went to you first, that's kind of out of process, but that's how it is in.
I'm
in
just
this town.
surprised they're not under the moratorium. That's the part that surprised me, Andrew, that I thought there was kind of like a moratorium on new projects coming forward, until they really got a sense of the infrastructure and, continue adding to the load. We met with the grid.
National Grid.
if I get back to Don's question, what you do with 3 projects you don't have a permit right now, I don't think that you have anything to do with it. I think that if they haven't filed, at least asked for an issuance yet, they're in trouble in the sense that if they don't do it, they can't start their project. And they may have dropped the ball in not at least asking for issuance of the permit, and recognizing that you're at the end of the pipeline, if you will. If they haven't done it, again, it would be nice if planning and conservation sent everybody to build it. But quite frankly, on a major project, developers are paying people to make sure that all the permits are requested. And so, again, in this particular case, our stormwater permit is not something weird to handle. Walk around in any of these communities, every one of them has a stormwater permit program. So why they didn't do it, and maybe it was deliberate, but my sense is they probably dropped the ball.
Well, would you say, for instance, let's go back to the Amoresco one. Since such a large component was reviewed by conservation, like you said, they would want that peer input before they tune their stormwater application.
Sure.
Because really, whatever came out of all the review was gonna really, focus on what they needed to do. Right.
Yeah, and maybe they're doing it, maybe in office, the engineers know that they have to do this. And they're just saying, well, we know that Wendell is waiting for peer review from planning or from conservation and planning. And at that point, we'll fill out the application, will come in and we'll say, here we are. My only comment is that it would be good to start, in a sense, with Wendell by giving him the plans for distribution. That way, everybody is on board that the project can move forward or not move forward. In this case, I think they just missed a step, and it may or may not hold them up in that if the solar project gets approved by the Conservation Commission and planning and is moving forward, peer review is done, Ty and Bond signs off on it, they can walk in the next day and say to Wendell with the application filled out and the $1 million that we want from them and say, I'm ready to go, or we're ready to go. And planning has sent an email saying we're okay. Conservation has sent an email saying we're okay. Then you're going to be happy.
Oh, absolutely.
And could be signed off that day.
I mean, I literally have them sending me their stormwater material and I keep sending it back to them going, I'm not the engineer. I'm not
Who's
the
this,
guy.
Amoresco?
You're waiting for peer review from planning, or you're waiting for, peer review Borrego, a solar site that we did over and over again. With regards to that, they thought I'm the engineer. I'm not the engineer. I'm more the keeper of the records and then the inspector after that point. But it's the process. I understand where you're saying is they're supposed to come down and pay me for their stormwater permit and they don't have a plan yet. So in their minds, how am I gonna give them 3 sets of plans we don't have? Why am I gonna give him $3,500 for something we may
Yeah,
not be able to do?
in these particular projects, if they haven't filed for a stormwater permit in a timely manner, like they're supposed to, how does that affect? What do? Do you waive it? Do you say, I'm gonna waive it? Do you say, I'm gonna ignore it? No, I'm not waiving the permit, but waiving the timeline. If you waive the timeline, isn't that
I guess from a practical standpoint, Don, though, that Wendell would have been waiving the timelines with at least 2 of those projects because of the extended length of time it's taken to go through the planning process. So he would have been waiving his timelines to begin with.
right? But there's a process for that where he can get the process with that where he can get them, just like when they do a continuance, they all agree that we'll continue with such and such a date.
Sure.
So he could have had all his things going and had a continuance. My point is they never filed. So now you're at a point, 6, 8 months, I mean, of Amoresco, we're 2 years down the line on them, and they never filed.
Well, that's because they never had a plan. They had, nobody's plan is finalized. I mean, Amoresco's might be, but the.
Well, they hadn't actually filed with Concom
No,
until,
no.
I don't even know if they've asked for a building permit.
Absolutely not.
Right, so they're not.
Until they're through with
No,
that.
well, the
I
building
don't know
permit,
about
the building permit was way later after.
Pardon me?
The building permit was way later
Oh,
after.
absolutely.
That's no problem. But I'm talking about the initial approval for the project, when we talk about self-storage, is that they
You're
haven't
saying they
submitted
should
a
have come
permit.
before they even submitted it to planning. They should have come to me and went,
And then you were gonna, did your
we're
thing
thinking
or
about
whatever.
doing this project.
Right, and so
It's
now we're in a
gonna be
situation that if they do it now, are we on the old bylaw or the new bylaw? If we're on the old bylaw, it's the selectmen's call on the permit. 'Cause it says
So when did they file?
What?
When did they file?
June,
What was the phrase concurrently supposed to mean in that sentence?
Concurrently
Because to
at
me,
the
that
same time.
means at the same time
yeah,
as you submit for your permit or before.
But you're saying with any land use permit application, so conservation isn't land use. You're asking about the land, but we're not determining what it can be used for. We're only determining the parameters of where you can work within it.
Yeah, but land, I would say that land use meaning disturbance on a parcel. They're going to use the land change it from what it currently is. So if they're putting in an addition or a solar farm, that land use, even though maybe they might be,
But I'm just saying, if I wanted to come in and do a study on the land and say, hey, file an RDA, I need to know what the boundaries are, where the wetlands are.
that's
You do that, that's not a land use. Even in NOI, you come in and say, well, I'd like to do this with this, but you're not actually disturbing anything. I mean, the planning board would seem more like you're actually determining, can you use that land for? And so they could almost come in and do the conservation stuff first, without even, because you're just trying to figure out. I know.
I know,
There's so many
but having
hypotheticals.
done this,
there's so many
for-
hypotheticals. I know.
but having done this for years, in office, you have a checklist. And every year, regulations change, depending on what you're doing. And you go through that checklist and you go, okay, this, and this, here are the filings I need to do, this, and this, and this. And unless you're in a town that's got some really weird conservation issues or weird septic, regulations, it's pretty perfunctory. And stormwater management now in the last 5-7 years is perfunctory. So yes, they should, in my opinion, just my opinion, they probably should have done the paperwork for the permit, asking for it. But I don't think it means that that it should be a problem that they didn't. The only problem they're going to have, I would think, is down the road, it could get held up just from a time frame standpoint if they don't file for the permit. Because if planning approves the solar farm and says, fine, go in conservation, and they still haven't filed that stormwater permit, then they can't go going. And as part of that, as I say, as part of it, it may not be just as easy as filling out the paper and walking in, as I said, because they have to tell Wendell who's the engineer, who's going to be managing that site. I want name, and it should all be in their stormwater management and their SWIP, but those issues are construction and post-construction issues that you will end up having to deal with.
Yeah, so I'm just talking about I know about the construction, but just the permitting process. So it says that before a permit can be issued, that the stormwater thing has to be done. Right? So they haven't done the stormwater thing. The time frame is way past when they should have done it. What's the legal, I guess I'm asking, you can't.
You're
answer.
asking
You probably got a
questions
question also.
to a board that can't give you.
I know.
For one thing, I'm just saying the plans, and again, Don, I'm gonna go back to, these plans are very fluid right now. They're not done.
I know. I
Okay,
understand that.
so how can I tell you that the peer review is going to be done? Okay, and yeah, they can go and get a stormwater permit tomorrow. Well, whatever, I'm not saying, whatever. But again, the plan for that, the stormwater review by our peer review has to be done after the final set of plans and after we get that final set of plans. So those plans aren't finalized. They're not even close.
Yeah, okay, I understand. So I'm just asking about.
It was the same thing with Amoresco.
Yeah.
With the panels, and we had that debate. They wanted to put panels, and Bob and I and Mark went up and where Mark needed that land, we got to tell them to not take the panels out of here. So their stormwater permit, their review might have changed because they don't have as much panels now that shed the water. Right.
But don't you think they should put, don't you think they probably should put, I mean, Rose is probably gonna answer this, but, you know, they put the application in and then go concurrently with what you're doing, you know, if it's, you know, they can get extensions, you know, 60, 90 days, you know.
And as I said to you, that we've been doing it wrong. There's been a defect, okay, all along. These things have come to us. I'm saying that, I'm speaking to the planning board. They always come to us, but our previous legal counsel, Mike Schneider, told me it doesn't start with you, John. It starts with building. And that's a long time ago when Mike Schneider was our legal counsel. In turn, we have lost that and we're not doing it. And that's why I say I refer everything now to Wendell.
I'll get your home number when.
I do my best.
I know you do.
No,
All right.
we're just trying to learn.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out where we are here, because we got these 3 projects without these.
And in
Permits
fairness to the
or even
board,
file
you
for a
gotta
permit.
remember, they never had a full-time inspector
Yeah,
that
no.
they could go, hey, down the hall,
Yeah.
start there with that guy. So people needed answers. And so, you know.
Well,
it just ended up-
I'm with Gary. I'm just very surprised that we
Right.
have projects this big and with engineers, that they don't have a checklist that says ABC.
Yeah, again, they may be sitting back, and I don't know why they would on not filing for the application. I mean, it does say submitted prior to or concurrently with any land use permit, you know. I don't know why they wouldn't have done it. It just seems proper that if you're giving plans out, you're spending all this money, you make sure you touch the bases you need to touch.
All
I
right.
don't think it precludes I know it doesn't preclude the planning board from
Doing
taking
their
action
thing, no.
or the conservation from taking action on any project that they get. I think that if anything, it's to the applicant's detriment that they didn't do it because they're gonna have to do it.
True, but I would have thought back with the Amoresco thing, Andrew being involved with that, with the project being so fluid, just by the, loss of panels because of highway department.
Right.
Loss of panels because of more setback for wetlands. Anything they had put in would have just been trash anyhow, because it was a guess at that point. So I think that was just realistic at that point. There are so many other stakeholders that are gonna be reading into the project. Anything we do right now, honestly, is a waste of time. We need input from Concom and.
For these three businesses or these three projects, I would tell them to go put the permit in now, because what's gonna happen
Yeah,
is
but here's the problem.
both of us could approve it. Or both committees could approve it, planning and conservation. Now it's there. He's not gonna issue a building permit because the stormwater stuff hasn't finished. And then he's gonna be waiting, it's gonna be a huge delay on them to get all that, get the permit pulled, get the funds. And now they're gonna have to go wherever they're gonna go get the money from to do that. And then he's gonna start then reviewing the paperwork from the planning board, reviewing it from us. Does he have everything he needs in it to finally move it forward?
The college education.
And then that's how I would look at it.
We'll go back to it. But it says prior to the issuance of any site plan approval or development permit. So does that mean they can't approve it before?
Say that, I'm sorry.
It says prior to the issuance of any site plan approval or development permit for any proposed development list below, stormwater management permit or waiver has to be obtained from the designated agent. Does that mean planning can't go forward until, why not?
I just think that if it were challenged, that the way the process and the way that the stormwater, I hear the language, but I think that the way that the stormwater committee worked on this, it was to be a concurrent review process with a final sign off to be at the stormwater application.
Goes back to concurrent, and they haven't filed the application for a permit or.
Yeah, but if concurrent could also mean through the process.
It said that they gotta file the application at the same time. They can do that. I'm just-
Concurrent,
I'm just
again,
telling you.
because
where this-
projects are
I'm just-
fluid,
I'm just
may not.
suggesting when this is going legally.
I get, and I'm not a lawyer,
Yeah, yeah.
please, I don't want to play one. And so,
All right, let's go out. Can I just go to quick one? Because you,
But I
I
think-
appreciate you guys' time. I really do.
if a party wants to challenge the fact that the stormwater permit was not applied for, they certainly have the right to do that based on what you're saying for the language. I would suspect that the court may look at how do you get to the final product of an approved stormwater application at the end.
Yeah.
And where it all sits. And I think we talked, I don't beat the dead horse, but we've talked pretty well to the point where planning, conservation are upfront because they do peer reviews and provide expertise to the stormwater permit program or at the end.
Don't get me wrong. I think you guys worked your ass off on this stuff and did a fantastic job. I know how difficult it is. I mean, John and I worked on the solar bylaws, and it was, every once a week for a year for many hours. So, then just real quick, I don't want to keep you longer. It says here that adequate property development. This is the Board of Selectmen, the designated agent, or the planning board are authorized to retain a registered professional engineer or other professional consultant. I mean, can they do that outside of, like, what if the Conservation Commission decides that we want to get an independent guy? I mean, We don't want to use time bond, we want to use someone else just to get two.
They have the right to do that.
We do that all the time.
They have the right to do that.
Yeah.
In some communities, it's required that at least 3 quotes for engineering services be provided for outside consultants.
Right, and why I just, you put Board of Selectmen here, but I guess that's because the whole.
You're on top of it.
And, when we hire Ty and Bond, do we check and see if they've ever done business with the developers?
Yes, they will come back and say they
I'm
can't.
asking you.
Conservation?
Yes,
We do.
they do that? Okay. All right, I don't have anything else. Any questions?
No.
Thank you. I didn't mean to interrogate you, but I wanted to get those all the same. All right. You interrupted.
No, you have. Always check that. So when I was on the planning board for 16 years, we also did that. Yes. History there.
We got fire chief recommendation, we scratched that.
That'll be on the 15th, right?
Again, same thing, it's got a quote, and delivery is 40 to 50 weeks. But you know, somebody tearing down a house and steal the generator.
What did you say?
His quote was 40 to 50 weeks for a rightly sized generator, it's that bad.
Appropriately sized, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at, gosh, 50 KW
You
probably.
look at big generator.
All right, fire station generator, a new probation, we took that one off. Highway garage project.
Pretty good,
What are we
they're
doing
actually
there?
starting excavation tomorrow. Yes, they are.
We're cutting the ribbon?
Well, not until it's done. Excavation tomorrow, the plan is to have the, Mark's online, but basically he's worked it out with both fire and police about scheduling using the gas boy, obviously during construction. Not such a big deal for the cruisers, but obviously for the fire trucks.
Okay.
And have the excavation completed and refilled, if you will, prior to the storm season. And then start back up with the construction. after
What's their
the
classification of storm season?
Well, I mean, my point is that, you know, they want to,
They're
a
gonna
hole.
dig it,
that
and
would-
then they're gonna
exactly, fill it back up.
Or foundation?
Exactly. I did talk to the Roy people, and obviously part of Wendell's inspection will be temperature. That's the big thing, you don't pour at the wrong temperature. So all this will be done in the afternoon, after the ground heats up, et cetera. They take core samples at the same time.
The highway superintendent, union contract, you know about that, Bob?
Yes, I've talked with the superintendent. And we talked about having the union representative, and there's some issues there. But this is a benefit, and no one's going to decline. I've also talked with the chief of police, who's also under contract, and the police union. So if this board is agreeable, I will sit down with each one of them and do an addendum to their contracts as opposed to modifying the contract itself.
Well, you said the police union,
The
that's
union,
already
that's
done, that's
okay.
what's done.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's I was thinking about, do we just want to modify the existing agreement? I don't like to reopen the.
We don't want to open it.
No,
up.
we don't want to
MOU is
reopen.
ready to
the
go, but
We want to do an addendum that simply changes the premium split for the next
6 months.
next 6, well, actually,
well,
we
6
would
months
do
starting
it.
the first, but I know
depending
the
upon how
treasurer
long
was
the
concerned
contract-
about the open enrollment for the retirees. And that's got to be addressed pretty quick, things like that.
Right, and I am in the process of finishing the letter to the retirees to
Mhm.
tell them that January, their withholdings will be different, and it becomes effective February 1.
Mhm.
And I tried to put out, okay, another 6 months.
So it's February 1 for them just because of the timing.
Well, that's
I
what
thought we
you
said-
guys said.
Well,
January 1 is
January.
when to
January.
start.
You said February, I'm sorry, I missed that.
January 1 is when the
What the
withholding
whole
changes.
starts, and then-
It's effective
Subsequent-
February.
No,
month
because
later.
December they pay for January.
Right.
So January they pay for February.
So we don't reimburse.
Right.
So
And-
I'm in the process of finalizing that to get it out to people.
And it'll say it's less.
It'll
Your
say-
letter.
Oh,
Less. Oh, depending on what the premiums go to. Right?
Yeah.
I had a process for modifying the personnel the employee handbook. I can just change the language.
Yeah.
You then want to vote on it?
You probably should,
Yeah.
just to make it.
Yeah, make it official.
Okay.
And also you were going to start, I don't know who the head of the union is now, but we're gonna set up a time frame for highway to start bringing them in.
You have any report on the Hampden Wolverine Regional School District Strategic Plan?
Yeah,
Meeting?
yeah, so we had the 2 meetings, TWB in the first and then Minichog yesterday. In both Hampden and Wilbraham meetings, there was an overwhelming emphasis from the community on supporting the trades, career pathways,
Vocational education.
vocational education, as well as arts, band, language, STEM, and personal finance and life skills, all encompassed in that. There was an equally strong support for getting back to the academics, reading, writing, math, which is good because our MCAS scores from last year were pretty bad. Yeah. If you look at them, there's a lot of kids that are not meeting expectations, so we need to refocus that as well. I have a meeting scheduled tomorrow with Superintendent Gannon and Gina to go over some concerns that I may have with how the boards were appointed. So that hopefully tomorrow I can get some questions answered from you guys.
I agree with all these comments, about obviously getting back into vocational and trades, which is a huge thing. I just don't know how they're gonna be able to do it and keep block scheduling. That goes back
Maybe block
into,
changes.
I think that's gotta be part of their focus. I mean, that really, I think, constricted. You had times back when my kids were there where you went over a year before you got back to math because, oh my gosh, you couldn't have math in the spring and you're off for the summer. And, seriously, because of the requirements of only 4 blocks.
I had when I was in school, we changed from regular 7-day periods to block scheduling.
Yeah.
And it really limited what you could do for
Right.
scheduling.
And to be honest, some teachers looked at, okay, part of the block is get your homework done. And they really weren't doing it. Some did, but a lot of them really couldn't have a good 90-minute program for teaching. And to be honest, we've all been students, it's tough to focus for 80, 90 minutes. Look at what trouble we have in our meetings.
This meeting's been going on for over an hour.
What?
When I went to school, I remember the day we got books.
Did you walk uphill both ways in the snow?
Yeah, but there were only
Barefooted.
16 presidents there,
Barefooted.
John. It was so much easier.
I remembered all 16 of
That's
them.
right. Lincoln was a great guy.
All right. Town hall tree lighting.
We should like the tree.
So I got some thoughts on that.
I like the tree.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I want to make it an event. Last year we had just the parade. We didn't do anything with the tree lighting. I want to get back into the community thing. Like in tradition in the past.
Okay.
I don't know what you're giving me the dirty looks for.
No, I'm fine with that. The only reason we stopped was because of COVID.
Right. So I want to make
The
sure.
outside thing wasn't the problem, it was the inside.
So, I'd like to do it a little ramped up this year than in past years. So I'm thinking December 4th would be a good tree lighting weekend. We could have the fire department involved and deliver Santa in a procession to the tree lighting, and Santa can do a big magical tree lighting thing. We can have him on the front steps and have the kids come make a big event out of it. I also thought maybe we could reach out to the high school chorus and have them sing some carols during the lighting.
Whoa, I think that's a little remark about the singing in the past. I take that.
I think there's some.
I heard that.
underlying
I heard
truth
that,
there.
yeah, exactly. You want some professionals, I got it.
Just something to spice it up for the community, just to kind of
Yeah.
let them know we didn't forget about them last year. And
Well, but let's go back to the core thing there. You're saying outside, are you saying we should not open up the town hall to the tree lighting thing? Is that where we're going?
that I don't know.
Well, that's kind of the thing. That's the whole thing here. We're not doing the inside things.
You can't have the congregation of kids the way we typically have in years past, all crowded in,
No.
unless.
That's what I'm
they're
saying.
gonna
It's a
mask.
crowded thing. I think we have-
Santa and Mrs. Claus are not going to sit and have kids
Well,
on their laps.
That's why I think we do it outside. We
That's
could-
what I'm
we could
saying. So right
decorate
now,
the front
no,
steps.
no, so I'm saying, let's focus on it first. Okay, we're not gonna have it inside. We're still cognizant of the potential, whatever.
I mean, I think we should allow the inside to be open for bathroom restroom use. Do you not?
I don't know, behind Paul's place, he's got all those trees.
He's got to fill his pool.
I mean, if you're expecting
can
that
hold it for
Santa
an
and
hour.
Mrs. Claus are gonna stand out on those steps for any prolonged period of time, you should think again. I don't see that happening. I mean, what are they gonna do? Hand something out, or I don't know. What are you?
What did you do with a kid? You go up and see Santa, you kind of tell them what you want, and
There
then,
could be,
Well,
you
you
know,
got a
cookies,
zillion
stuff
kids.
outside.
what's that?
You got a zillion kids who want to sit on Santa's lap.
Okay.
And,
What's the problem?
well, first off, kids and.
Kids are the problem?
Masks,
We're out for outdoors.
Santa outside, depending on the weather.
Yeah,
The time of all those people standing around. I mean, have you been around? Have you been to these before?
I've been to similar ones, yeah.
Okay, you haven't been here before.
I've been to similar ones. I've not been
Okay,
to one here.
I mean, okay.
I think we're
Ask
getting
the
off topic
question.
here.
Ask the question.
but it's
that's all.
crowded in here, and I mean, we've got generally the Girl Scouts, whatever. Outside, you've got a 40-degree difference, and that might be a thing. With the hour it takes to run through the line, what are we doing with the kids?
Well, I mean,
Longer than an hour, John.
kids don't
Longer.
play outside in the winter when it's snowing. They wear a coat and gloves and a hat. I don't know. What do other towns do when they have tree lightings outside? Kids are outside with coats and hat and gloves.
Yeah,
So
which
it's-
is fine too, but they may not have the Santa thing outside, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Because the tree lighting as itself is gonna take 30 minutes, and that's great.
Okay, if we don't want to have Santa present for the kids, at least he can come and be
And
part
I
of the
think that's
event.
the idea, we just have to skip the Santa lap thing, that's all.
And they had
that
done,
works out.
I thought last year, I mean, I wasn't party to it, but they had Santa in the truck, and I think he went around, didn't he?
Yeah.
To different
Yeah.
areas and stopped.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know, but
I
you gotta
think-
be
I
cognizant
think
of
that
those
is
kids
a
and
good idea,
masks.
what you're talking about there. You know, make sure the fire department, and maybe after he waves and goes through town on another tour after finishing here. Who's to say? You wanna reach out to the scouts and see if they wanna set up a table outside and have some refreshments as well?
I'm thinking like hot chocolates or something like that, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
It's hard enough to do it in here.
Yeah, I did mention to James, this
Food,
dovetails
drinks,
with that,
and-
that right now, we're still, CARES expires at the end of the year, right, Bob? Or no?
Yes,
All right,
I have an update for the, about that.
okay, but I did suggest to her, let's get a couple of tents. We don't have them. And right now, because we need them for outside remote things, they would be covered. You know, right now, get a couple of, you know what I mean, Don, those pop-up
Yeah,
signs.
yeah, yeah.
Throw one in the trailer for when we have to go out, you know, when the trailer's used for that type of thing. And have one here for that type of thing. And maybe we have a 10 by 20 for town events that honestly got paid for by CARES.
Tent?
I mean, they sell them.
So we're looking at two,
But-
maybe a 10 by
Probably
20
a
and
bit
a
better
bit
one.
small.
I mean, you know what I
Yeah,
mean, that
yeah.
type of thing, sure.
But the other thing, I think, you've got to worry about the food. I mean, if you're talking about food
Food.
and drink.
Mhm.
Drinks maybe, but food. I don't think you can have in this day,
No,
have people,
No, unless it's
Picking
individually
things up.
wrapped, they. I don't think
somebody
they
would
can do
have
anything.
to serve, or, I don't know.
I don't think we're thinking food, I was thinking just hot chocolate.
Well, we've done food in the past, Craig.
Mhm.
So
Well,
that's what I'm
cookies and stuff like,
suggesting.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so unless they're individually bagged, and maybe we have to be careful about that.
Right.
Twinkies for everybody,
And they can't be handmade anymore, they've got to be,
from the 20s.
I mean, talk to Jane about the food handling, because.
All right, and bottom line, I think it's a good idea, let's try
Yeah.
and
Let's,
restart it.
let's start it up and revamp it. Summers Road crosswalk.
And we have an
One point,
established
The other
date for
question
this.
is the.
The date is
December
typically
4th.
It's usually the first Sunday of
All right.
the month.
What do we,
Yeah, I agree
December
with that.
4th,
December 4th is a Saturday, is that okay?
No, the first Sunday of the month.
December 5th.
Why Sunday? I'm just asking.
Tradition.
First Sunday of Advent.
They get that little calendar thing with the chocolates.
Advent. Christian. What do you want, 4th or 5th?
I'm cool with it. I was just asking, just curious.
Okay, Summers Road crosswalk,
Yeah, I threw that on. Do we have an update on that?
we have two problems. Firms apparently have enough work to do, and secondly, they can't get materials. I've asked, I've found,
Generator.
the company that the Commonwealth uses. They have the best product in terms of stability and durability. And it also looks very attractive. And I've asked them to give me a proposal. They just blew me off.
They put 3 in East Long Meadow over the summer. I mean, one in Shaker.
Yeah, yeah.
Who did they use? Maybe we should call over.
I don't know. Well, the suggestion actually earlier yesterday was that I should call Palmer Paving. Now, they're a big company. I don't know if they're in a position to do that, but I thought that's what I'm going to do this week is give them a call, see if they either have an interest in it or can steer me towards someone who can subcontract and do it.
Well, not so, I mean, if you haven't got materials, no need to do it. The other question I had was, if I recall, you didn't have to have it installed, you had to have it planned or the money expired, right?
Well, no, the money, once we got approval, which we received in September,
For the different projects, but isn't there still money we haven't,
we still have money. No, we're approved for $100,000.
even though we're only using 50?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And secondly, I'm actually doing the annual report today. Most of these programs require an annual report, and I'm going to be submitting that and just informing them that we're having to struggle here to get a commitment to do this project. It's a relatively small project. We don't have to bid it. It's going to be in the range of 25 to 30, and no bid requirements, just good business practices that they typically would say three phone calls.
Coming down Allen Street the other day, I saw a speed monitor sign on a tree, like 2 houses, almost across from, not Quads,
Yes. it's right
Garbecki,
there.
across from Garbecki's house.
Yes,
Is that one of ours? I mean, it's mounted on a tree?
Portable.
that's the small one they have.
Yeah.
You can't, you don't see it till you blow by it at 60.
Right.
That's I was going 60.
Yeah.
See that Raymond a lot.
The sign that we did buy with these funds is working very well. It just so happened that it was new and they didn't realize that the battery would run out right before the town meeting. So we didn't have it posted there at Wilbraham Road and East Long Meadow Road and Allen Street and so forth, the day of the town meeting. But, learn how to time the battery.
Those little things that go like this get really low.
Solar.
There is solar on it, and there was some other issue with the battery though. For that.
That tree would have been solar.
So
Right.
I'm not giving up on this. I'm gonna, obviously.
I still would
we
call.
need to do it.
Yeah.
I still would call.
Oh, East Long Meadow.
That's where they bought theirs.
All right.
They put them in pretty quick.
Selectmen reports.
I'll give you a quick update on the water project. There's the pre-conference meeting will be probably on site next Tuesday. The road cutting starts on Wednesday. The bullet work, which is what they use, and I want to see that to go underneath the brook.
Oh, yeah,
Basically,
to shoot through.
shoot, to drill underneath that. And anyhow, the whole project is scheduled to be completed before Thanksgiving.
Really?
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh.
So,
Tied in by then or just?
Under time?
Or just late?
no, complete. So I asked who's taking care of what. The contractor will take care of actually meeting with the homeowners to schedule time for hookup and stuff, to let them know, hey, by the way, water's gonna be off for these 2 hours while I hook up the pipe, blah, blah. I've drafted a letter to the homeowners to let them know what the board has done, et cetera. At some point, Bob, I think we need to talk about reviewing the agreements we have in place, because there may be, and I think Don has talked about this before, to bring them into conformance with the agreements that we have with the rest of the district. That this is your water as long as you own the house, and to go forward with, once you change, that's why we put meters on.
Just make, be done before Thanksgiving, but just make sure that,
Our plan is to be done by Thanksgiving.
okay, but just make sure Thanksgiving Eve is the time they decide to shut the water off for 2 hours.
Yeah, nobody's having parties, it's still COVID time.
You can't get turkey, so it doesn't.
So at that point, I mean, that is progress, and again, the same thing.
All right, anything?
We just covered it in my strategic plan.
Town administrator?
Okay, we did convene a meeting of the Commission on Disabilities on the 27th. Discussed their participation in the DTR training program, which took place on Monday. They did in fact participate, and I think they understand that it's going to be a main responsibility of the commission to see to it that the laws for fair housing, as well as the laws regarding disability, are enforced. Let's see, local town administrators met on the 28th of October to discuss the Hampden County Retirement Board, and as Don pointed out, significant progress has been made and is being made to make fundamental changes in the way that board functions and the way the system operates that will be far more effective in saving the funds that towns and their employees contribute into the retirement system. And ultimately, this will mean that the annual increase that we experience here, which is 8% a year, will have a chance to reduce that annual percentage in order to reach the goal by 2036 of full funding. So I think that's encouraging. Also, the shared health group met on Monday. The system is now operational. The Long Meadow Selectmen were the last ones to approve. We have a director, a health director. We have a health inspector. Ashley Boudreau is our permanent health inspector. As you know, we are the first inspector.
Heard that before.
Pardon?
I've heard that before.
I know, well, the first inspector withdrew, but she, I think, is going to be with us.
Who is this? Who was this? Bob?
Ashley
Sorry.
Boudreau.
Ashley Boudreau?
Ashley Boudreau.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did put her name in the booklet,
Oh, Boudreau.
so she's already in there.
That makes it real.
Yeah. So I think everybody's enthusiastic that this is going to work well. We also have a public health nurse, and Jane and I talked about the public health nurse that we have part-time, and she's funded until December the 31st. And there was some discussion of whether or not to continue with her using available funds, federal funds, for a few more months until the whole COVID crisis is clearly over. Retain her because we may have a need for her services until clearly we're over the hump with COVID. And we can justify funding on that basis. And then transition. And if we need additional hours, Sheila's hours are limited, we clearly can rely upon the nurse that is part of the shared health system. And I so informed the health director of that. Jane will continue to be our contact person and handle paperwork and see to it that inspections that take place and other health needs are addressed. The CARES Act is officially closed out. I closed it out last week. And
I just asked you if we could get the tents, and you said yes.
aha,
Oh,
let
okay.
me finish my sentence.
Okay.
You closed out, in the process of closing out the CARES Act, they gave you one final opportunity
Okay.
to ask for more money. So I did. And it was approved.
With no receipts? I love this country.
Yeah. So $48,000 more is coming into our coffers. And I think that's where we can find some funds for tents. As you know, the painting of Academy Hall is completed and payment was approved. Assessors are focused on November the 15th for the classification hearing. The kickoff meeting for the DER culvert replacement project took place on the 25th. I sent you a message today that there are inspectors in town now looking at a number of culverts. I believe it's 10 that they'll be reviewing. I did talk with the chief about the so-called archive social proposal. There is a company that has signed up a number of police departments in the region to basically take data from Facebook and retain it. Reason being that those records are discoverable if in fact the Facebook page is sponsored officially by the town or a town department. I'm not convinced, and first of all, they're looking for $3,000 to $4,000. I'm not convinced that this makes any sense. And we had a second discussion today, and he and I both agreed that we don't need to do this, that although they have a Facebook page,
Yeah, but
that data will be retained.
But the stuff they have on their Facebook page is like
Media announcements.
the highway, the emergency storm, storm regulations are going to affect.
I think the chief heard a pitch on this, came and talked to me, and once we discussed it thoroughly, we both agreed that this is not something that we need to do. Also have taken an inventory of, since we're getting new money, of our need for laptops and printers. And I have a list that will be turned in this week. And I think when we complete this effort, all of our town employees will be up to date with technology. And we can pay for it with CARES Act money.
When that runs out, we'll just ask for more.
And that runs out. And there's plenty available. I think the new infrastructure legislation means that we should convene an ARPA committee sooner rather than later. There's going to be a good deal of money coming out for infrastructure purposes. I think it makes sense for the town to figure out what infrastructure projects we want to do, and that includes broadband. And then use the winter to get shovel ready for those projects.
I was talking to Mark about that today. Now that we have the new number for the water project, I mean, obviously we're even considering contingencies, we saved 4+ on that. Now you have just from the first ARPA thing, Bob, 1 point something
1.6.
available, right? 1.1 left over after the water project. I don't know how much the municipal light thing would cost us.
Well, this is the last point I want to make, is that I think we should convene the committee, combine ARPA and infrastructure together, lay out the regulations, what purposes the money can be used for, and then make some decisions. And then I think we should do what Wilbraham has done, and that is get a consultant who will do a design for us, who will design a system and give us cost estimates. Wilbraham managed to hire a company that did not sell services other than consulting. In other words, they weren't saying we'll consult because we want to do business with you after we do the plan. This company simply did the plan. And I'd be a little more trusting of that. And so we can use ARPA money. And I thought with the permission of the board, I would move
For
ahead.
the broadband build out you're talking, or for broadband build
For the
out?
master
Yes.
plan. Yeah.
For a master plan for the town.
Well,
Certainly in
A, we
phases.
certainly need a master plan updated, but I would like to see, I mean, the ARPA money to me, broadband is nice, but it would be nice, and I brought this up to Mark, come to our board with your 22 construction plan. In any needs you see that maybe just because, say we take the 1.1, 600 goes for broadband, but we do a one-time whatever, 500,000 towards an exceptional need. That this road is falling apart, Chapter 90 wasn't gonna pay for it, but right now we could do something. This is the thing where different departments come to our board. They should lobby for whatever they need. That's their job.
Yeah.
Right. And it's up to
Absolutely.
us to balance the request.
Mhm.
I have no sense at this point what the broadband rollout will cost us. I don't know, and this is one of my questions, what it's gonna cost the average homeowner. If we provide them fiber, Craig, what's the typical bill projected for something like
$50 a month.
$50 a
that?
month.
50 bucks a month,
That's what we were told by Whip City Fiber.
you know?
And that when we saw Wolverine
And-
master plan too.
Yeah.
Now, but we are the billing agency,
I think we,
Yeah, I think we would be, yeah, and then we could set the rates too.
right? So then, obviously, part of the bill will be covering the people. I mean, we need a 10-person department, obviously.
what I would like to do and propose to do is
Retirement fund.
to solicit for consultants,
Mhm.
get 2 or 3 consultants who can do a plan for us, a master plan. Like have you all seen the Wolverine plan? I thought I sent it. Do something like that. I mean, it doesn't make sense for us to get started on something unless we have a professionally done plan
Mhm.
in phases, obviously, because it's gonna take a while.
Is that something where we can use the community compact grants for, to fund the master plan?
Uh,
Because there's that whole,
That's coming, yes, we can, but that's next year.
that's next year.
I would recommend using ARPA money now and finding some other use for that community compact grant program, I think, which it comes out, I think, in March. It's kind of in the spring,
April.
April, you know. Yeah. So,
Okay.
Do you have any sense of what that infrastructure plan is gonna look like for us? I'm sure there's no numbers, but
No.
are you
what we
sensing?
wait for now, the legislation is passed, we wait for the Treasury to come out with regulations, like they've done with our
Come on, Bob, you
Like they've
can't
done
make
with
that call.
CARES.
You can't, you don't have him on speed dial. Hey, Joe, it's Bob.
Send the money, like, send us the check,
You
please.
can go right past Richie now. You go
We
right.
don't want to screw around. So there we are. That's the report.
Anything else to come before the board?
No?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay, so you want to go?
Well, I mean, I always do it. It's like, yeah.